Chicago Bulls, the first game I'm going to recap here in fantasy basketball from last night, and the Chicago Bulls win it 133 to 130 over the Wizards. And right now the Bulls, they've won two in a row, and the Wizards fall to 0-5 in this one. And this Washington team, I don't know what's going to happen with them. We thought getting Russell Westbrook will make this team better, but right now they've struggled and they're 0-5. But let's get to the box score here. We'll start off with the Bulls. Otto Porter Jr., he finally had a coming out party in this one. 28 points, 3 assists, and 12 rebounds for Otto Porter. And Otto Porter coming into the year, I didn't have great high hopes for him, but this was a great double-double for him in 30 minutes of play for Porter Jr. So I think he could get better as the year goes on. And this Bull team, they're going to be out of it. So a lot of young guys are going to play, and I think Otto Porter, I believe in his last season of contract, he's going to play a lot, or they'll try to build up his trade value, and he'll get traded at the deadline. But a good game for Porter, and that's what Porter owners want to see. Patrick Williams, he was a recommended pickup this week, but he didn't do much in this game with 10 points, a rebound in 18 minutes, but he did get the start. They're going to play the kid. They got him early in the first round in the NBA draft. So I think Williams, as the year goes on, his minutes will go up and his stats will get better. Wendell Carter Jr., decent game for him, 16 points and assists, 5 rebounds in 23 minutes. Wendell Carter, we thought he would be decent this season, but I wasn't that high on him, to be honest, was Wendell Carter Jr. But a good game here versus Washington. But I think this was more of a matchup thing than anything for him to have a good game in this one. Now we go to Kobe White, and Kobe White, he was a player I was high on coming into drafts, and a guy I said to buy low going into this week. And Kobe White with a huge game, 16 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds, and he played a team-high 40 minutes in this one. Kobe White, he's a good shooter, he's a good ball player, and he's got the keys to that point guard position over here in Chicago with the Bulls. The Bulls, they got rid of Dunn in the offseason, so Kobe White, he's going to be the main man over there, and he's going to have every opportunity to shine, and hopefully we see more ball games out of White like we did in this one. Zach Levine, you drafted him second, third round in most fantasy leagues, and another good game for him in 35 minutes. 22 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. So Zach Levine, he's a good fantasy player. He's going to score points. He's going to be the Bulls' leading scorer pretty much the whole season, and he had a good game here. Gary Temple, he's not really fantasy relevant, but he did play 28 minutes in this one, was Gary Temple. 8 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds Temple had. Thaddeus Young, he came back from injury in this one, and he played a great ball game. 15 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds in 27 minutes for Thad Young. And Thad Young, he's an interesting pickup. He's a good role player. He qualifies at small forward and powered forward in fantasy leagues. And the Bulls, they paid him a decent contract, so he's going to play, I believe, in these games, and he's going to play major minutes. And he got 27 here. Daniel Gafford, not on the fantasy radar, but he had a good game as well. 15 points, 2 assists, 5 rebounds in 22 minutes of play. So Gafford, he's a solid player, I think. He could get the job done, and we'll see if he's going to be on the radar as the weeks go on. But he's going to get playing time too. Another young guy on this Chicago team, and Denzel Valentine, he's not fantasy relevant, but he played 15 minutes, 3 points, an assist, and 4 rebounds. Now we'll go to the Washington Wizards side of things, and we'll start off here with Deni Avdija, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 points in 25 minutes of play, and he's not fantasy relevant yet. I know he was a high draft pick in the first round for this team, but he's not ready yet to be fantasy relevant. But I would keep an eye on him. Rui Hachimura, he comes back, and he had a good ball game in 25 minutes, 17 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds. Hachimura, he was a player I said to sell high coming into the week because he had that eye infection, and we don't know when he's going to come back, so he came back in this one finally. He played a good game, 17-5, pretty solid, and 3 assists also from the forward, so that's a good game. Thomas Bryant, huge ball game, but the problem I have with him here, only 3 rebounds for him, but he had 28 points and 3 rebounds in 34 minutes, and so far Thomas Bryant, he's proven me wrong here in fantasy circles, and this was a huge ball game for him to get 28 points from a center who you took in the 7th or 8th round on most fantasy leagues. That's a good get right here. So Thomas Bryant, he's going to be the main center there. Bertans, he's going to be more off the bench, and so is Robin Lopez. So Bryant, I said to sell him high, and if you want to after this game, you could probably get something decent for him. Russell Westbrook, another triple-double for him. Coming into the year, I said this was a great landing spot for Westbrook, and we're going to see the triple-doubles come back because the ball's going to be in his hands 60-70% of the possessions here. And Westbrook, another big triple-double in this one. 22 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, and 39 minutes of work. But the only thing with Westbrook, he's not going to play back-to-backs, and already tonight's game, he's ruled out in this one, is Westbrook. That's the only problem. But besides that, he's putting up a triple-double, it seems like, every other game so far in the early going. Bradley Beal, huge game, 28 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds. And Beal, his scoring really hasn't gone down since last season, and we saw it here again tonight with a good ball game and 28 points for Beal. And Beal, you know, he's a pure scorer. He's going to shoot threes. He's going to get to the foul line, and that's what he's going to do. Raul Nieto, he had a decent ball game, 15 points, an assist, and 4 rebounds. And Nieto, he might start tonight with Russell Westbrook out on the back-to-backs, and Nieto is a guy to keep an eye on. But I wouldn't rush to the waiver wire and go out and get him right away. Davis Bertans, he had a struggled game here. 3 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds. Bertans got the huge contract in the offseason, but the thing with him is, I think it was a fluky year, and now he got his money. We'll see how he performs, and in this game, obviously he didn't perform. The ball's not going to be in his hands as much. It's going to be Westbrook, Beal, and Bryant, the 3 main guys there, with Bertans being more of a guy in the corner, catching, shooting. So Bertans, his value, I didn't like it coming into fantasy drafts where I saw him go 7th, 8th round in most drafts, and this is why. He's going to have some nights like this where he struggled. Troy Brown, decent game, but he's not on the radar. 6 points, an assist, rebound in 17 minutes. Ish Schmidt, 8 minutes, 3 assists. He didn't do much. Mortis Wagner, 5 points, 2 rebounds, 7 minutes of work. And Rolo, 6 minutes with a rebound. So that was the Bulls and Wizards recap. Now we'll go to the next game of the night. The 76ers and the undefeated Magic it was coming into this one. But Philly, they put the route on early and often in this one. And they win the ball game 116-92 here over the Magic. And we'll go to the box scores, starting off with Philly. Tobias Harris, another good game for him. 20 points, 3 assists, 9 rebounds. Harris, you know he's going to score 18, 20 points a game this season, even with Ben Simmons and Embiid, who are probably, hopefully, healthy the rest of the way this year. But Philly, they're trying to make a push now with a few changing parts in this roster and new head coach Doc Rivers. And Tobias Harris, he played for Rivers in Los Angeles for the Clippers a few seasons ago, and he had a good ball game here. And Harris, he was a player I wasn't that high on, but you know you're going to get scoring and some rebound out of him. Danny Green, he's not fantasy relevant, 3 points in 18 minutes of work. He's more of a veteran leader and a player who's going to catch and shoot and play good defense for this Philly team, but he's not going to be on fantasy radars. Joel Embiid, another good game here, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Embiid, he got his points early in this one, and then this game got out of hand here. So Embiid, he's solid. You got him in second or third round, even first round. I saw him go in a few fantasy drafts. But Embiid, he's putting up the numbers. The only thing with him is he going to play many back-to-backs this season. Who knows? And now Seth Curry, another good game for Seth Curry. 21 points, 3 assists, and a rebound in this one for Seth. And Seth, he's in a good system here. His father-in-law's the head coach, obviously. And Curry's a guy that I had as a sleeper coming into the season. He fits this system well, especially with 2 big stars in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. He'll open it up for Curry to get some open shots and make a few plays like he did in this one last night. And he's going to help in threes. He's going to be efficient from the foul line and a pretty good field goal percentage shooter. Ben Simmons now, he almost had a triple-double in this one, the old Jason Kidd type. He almost had with 9 points, 8 assists, 10 rebounds. Ben Simmons even hit a 3 in this one. But you want to see his points go up. And so far this season, I think he's only maxed out at 16 points in a game. So that's the only knock on Simmons, but everything else except threes and scoring, he's been great at so far, and the key with him is health. But Ben Simmons and the Sixers looking good so far. And Simmons, he was a guard I said to buy low going into the week, and right now maybe you could if the Ben Simmons owner is frustrated, the lack of points and obviously the three-point shooting. Shake Milton, he was a player I said you got to get him on the waiver wire this week, and another good game here for Milton, 14 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. He's pretty much the sixth man coming off the bench here for the Philadelphia 76ers, and another good game here for Milton. And he's available probably in 50% of fantasy leagues. So I would go out there and try to get him. He's going to have a major role. We saw a good game out of him. I know he struggled the last few before this one. But Milton, he's definitely a guard on the radar. Tyrese Maxie, the rookie here, 10 points, 2 rebounds in 21 minutes of work. Maxie, he's not on the radar just yet. But if his minutes go up as the year goes on, he's definitely a player that's worth getting. Matisse Thybulle, one of their top prospects that they've had in the system a few years here now for this Philly team. He's just getting blocked by Curry and Simmons, and Milton obviously are getting big minutes, but a decent game, 9 points, 4 boards, but he's not on the radar. Mike Scott, 17 minutes, 4 boards, he's not on fantasy radars. And Dwight Howard, he even added a 3 in this one, 7 points, 5 rebounds and assists, but Dwight, he's not playing enough minutes yet. Only 14 minutes in this game, and he's going to have many games like this in my opinion, so I don't think Howard's fantasy relevant. Now to the Magic side of things, Dwayne Bacon, another start here for him, but I don't think he has fantasy value as Bacon. 10 points, an assist, and 3 rebounds. Aaron Gordon, he was a player I said to buy low coming into the week, and another performance like this could help your chances of trying to trade for him. 6 points, an assist, 3 rebounds in 21 minutes of work in this one. So Gordon, I like him a lot. He's an athletic wing here for fantasy owners at the forward position, but he's having some bad games so far this season, so hopefully he could get it going. But I would still go out there and buy him low. Nikola Vukovic, 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists for Vukovic. So Vuk, he was a second, third round pick in your fantasy drafts. And Vukovic, he's a stud and a great center for fantasy and these Orlando Magic. So Vuk, he had a great game. Another double-double for him. And in 24 minutes, he had a good stat line. So when that game's not out of hand, it's just more the better for him coming up. Markelle Fultz, a guy I was very high on, and I have him in 2 leagues this season. But a bad game versus former team here. 9 points, 4 assists. 2 rebounds for Fultz, so hopefully Fultz, he gets it together next game. He just couldn't shoot well in this one, so we'll see what he could do as the games come up. I'm still high on Fultz. He's a good player. He's coming into his own, and he also got the contract extension here for the Orlando Magic. Evan Fournier, I don't know what happened, if he got hurt or what, but no reports really coming out after this game for Fournier. He had 3 points, 2 assists, and a rebound in only 8 minutes of play, so something's definitely up in my opinion with Fournier here. The rookie Cole Anthony here, a good game for Anthony, 16 points, 2 assists, 7 rebounds. Greg Anthony's son here, good ball game. I don't think he's on the radar quite yet unless you're in deep fantasy leagues or dynasty or keeper leagues, then he's on the radar. But if he could get extended minutes like he did in this one with 30 minutes of play, he's definitely a player to keep an eye on and possibly go get on the waiver wire. Michael Carter-Williams, good game, 10 points, 6 rebounds, but I still don't buy it for him as a fantasy relevant player. Keem Birch, 6 points, 7 boards, and assist, 19 minutes of play, but this game was a blowout, so the bench, they played a lot in this one, so I think Carter-Williams down on this box score. These guys just don't have fantasy value. Maybe you take a look at them as the weeks go on. But these are guys I'm definitely not going to go out there and try to get just yet on the wire. So that was the Sixers and Magic game. Now on to the Kings and Rockets. And for the Rockets, it was John Wall's debut and Demarcus Cousins. And the Rockets get their first win of the season here with 122-119 victory over the Kings, who were surprisingly 3-1 coming into this one. So here we go to the Kings side of things. Harrison Barnes, he's the main man over there, it looks like, in Sacramento. And another good game for him. And a guy available in a bunch of fantasy leagues still. 24 points, 8 rebounds, and an assist here for Harrison Barnes. So Barnes, he's going to help in a few categories. He's improving his three-point shot slowly. But this is a good play here, and Barnes, if he's out there somehow in your fantasy league still, he's a player I would go out there and grab. Marvin Bagley, I wasn't high on him coming into fantasy drafts, and a bad game for him in this one. 4 points, 8 rebounds, and an assist in 26 minutes of play. So Bagley, I wasn't high on him. I didn't think he would have much fantasy value, and a game like here tonight showed that one for Bagley and the Kings. Raquan Holmes, I definitely was low on him coming into the season, even though he was going 8th and 9th round in fantasy drafts. But he had a monster ball game in this one. 22 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 assists. So maybe Holmes, he could find something getting going here after a huge performance tonight for Raquan Holmes. And we'll see. It's a wait-and-see approach with him. I know he's owned in about 70% of fantasy leagues. But Holmes, I'm not going to get overexcited about him just after one monster game here that he posted in this one. But it was a good double-double, and hopefully he continues here for this King team. Buddy Hield, he's been struggling with his field goal percentage and stuff, and he's a guy said to go buy low early in the week at the guard position, and he had a decent game. 19 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and he's going to play all the minutes. He might get traded at the deadline. There was rumblings before the season that rumors of him going to New York or wherever, but obviously that didn't happen. But Hield, hopefully he gets better as the games go on, but it was a step in the right direction for him here. De'Aaron Fox, the new $160 million man for this King team. Solid game, 22 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds for Fox. The only thing Fox really needs to do is work on that three-point shooting and field goal percentage, but he's a solid fantasy player that most people got in the 4th or 5th round of their fantasy drafts this season. Tyrese Halliburton, the impressive rookie, a decent game, and he got good minutes in this one. 11 points, an assist, 2 rebounds for Halliburton. So he's going to have fantasy value. If his minutes stay, this will go up, and it was a good game for him in his rookie year. Corey Joseph, decent game, 9 points, 5 assists, and a rebound, but I don't see much into it. And he's not a recommended ad at this time as Joseph. It was just a decent game with a team like Houston where you're going to get a lot of possessions. Not Bawikwa, former MVP in overseas league, but he's a guy I never could trust. He has a big game here and there, but when you get him on your roster over the last few seasons, it seems like he just doesn't get the job done. And a decent game here, 8 points, 2 assists, 5 boards, but I'm not buying into Bawikwa and Hassan Whiteside. He only played 3 minutes in this game, so Whiteside owners are starting to get frustrated here with week 3 already coming up here in the fantasy season. So Whiteside, I don't know what the deal is with him, but to see him only get 3 minutes in this game, maybe because the Rockets played small ball or whatever, it's a little concerning. And now to the Rockets side of things, PJ Tucker, he's not having fantasy value. No points and 6 rebounds in this one, so we'll overskip him. No value. He's a good role player, good starter for this Rocket team, but he's not going to have enough of anything in categories or points league to help you keep him on your fantasy team. Daniel House, same type of thing. He's a 3-point specialist, and he doesn't do much else either, really. But House with a decent game here. 11 points, an assist, and 5 rebounds in this one. Christian Wood, I thought he wouldn't be good this season, but so far he's proved me wrong. He's picked up right where he left off with Detroit last season. 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists here for Christian Wood. So Wood, sky the limit for him, it looks like, in this Rocket system. He's fitting in, and he's playing well. So a good game for Wood. Rockets get their first win and ride high with Wood. But I said to sell him high, and maybe someone will overpay for him at this time here early in the season. James Harden, he wants out of Houston. All the reports and rumors have been, but he's still putting up huge numbers here in his 3rd game of the season for Harden. 33 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. So Harden, he's doing it all. He's playing well, even with the frustration and the overweight coming into training camp. So he's been a stud, and he's a guy living up to that first round, 1st or 2nd pick pick in fantasy drafts. John Wall, in his return to the NBA after sitting out just about 2 seasons. A great game for John Wall, 22 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds. So it was good to see him back. And obviously he got drafted in 6th or 7th round of fantasy leagues. And Wall with a great game in this one. Eric Gordon, a good game in his return. First game of the season for him, 17 points, 2 rebounds, 26 minutes. Gordon, I just added him in one of my leagues, and I know what he's going to do. He's going to help me in three-pointers. He's a pretty good foul shooter, and he's going to score the basketball as a 6-man off the bench here for this Rocket team, and that's what he did in this ball game last night. Deshaun Tate, he played a decent game. The rookie that got punched out by James Harden and basketballs thrown at him in practice. 4 points, an assist, and 6 rebounds, but I don't think he has fantasy value yet. We'll see now with John Wall in the lineup what Tate's role is going to be with the upcoming games. Demarcus Cousins, his first game as a Rocket, and they're going to limit his minutes here, but he looked decent, 8 points, 3 assists, and a rebound in 14 minutes of work. So Cousins, I actually own him in 2 leagues, and I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach with him. We'll see what he could do, but it was a decent ball game for him here. So that was the Rockets and Kings fantasy recap. Now we'll go to the Knicks and the Raptors, and the Raptors get their first win of the season, 100-83, and Pascal Siakam, after walking off the court the other night, they suspended him for this game, and he didn't play. And the Knicks, they were abysmal, hitting 3 of 36, I believe, from the three-point line, and they fall to 2-3 in this one. In this game, it was close until the mid-third, early fourth, where the Raptors took off and won this game. And now we'll go over the box score here. Reggie Bullock, 6 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds in this one. In 38 minutes of work, he's playing major minutes, but he's not a guy that has fantasy value. He had a decent game versus Cleveland the other night. But once again, we saw Bullock inconsistent and missing a tougher shots like this whole Knicks team in this one. Julius Randle, another solid game for him. He's the Knicks' number 1 player right now. 16 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds in this one for Randle. So Randle, he was a player I said to sell high. And we'll see if teams start doubling him now, like Toronto started to do in this one at times during the game. But Julius Randle, he's playing well. He's putting up good numbers. And Thibodeau, he's riding with his starters. It looks like 35-plus minutes for the most part. Mitch Robinson, he's a player I said to buy low, and this is the time now to buy low. 25 minutes of play, 4.7 rebounds, and that's not a great stat line for Mitchell Robinson. We'll see if he improves as the games go on, and his problem's been foul trouble, and he got into it a little early in this one with the fouls. R.J. Barrett, he's been horrible from three-pointer. 0 for 21 now in his three-point shooting in the last few games. And in this game, he didn't do much. His field goal was bad. 12 points, 3 assists, 8 rebounds in this one for Barrett. But the learning, it's going to be tough times. But Barrett's going to play. He got 37 minutes in this one. And you got to just keep going with Barrett. And hopefully he improves, because the first few games, he was good. Alfred Payton, a decent game for him. 14 points, 4 assists. 3 rebounds for Payton. He's a guard I said to drop coming into the week, and if Emmanuel quickly comes back the next game, he might be droppable, because we saw Austin Rivers come back in this one, and Rivers 21 minutes, 7 points, 5 assists, and a rebound. Then he added a 3, so Austin Rivers, he looked decent in his first action of work this season for the Knicks. He's a 3-point specialist and a scorer, is Rivers, but he actually played some decent defense in this one as well. So Rivers, we'll see how things pan out for him. Also, Nicolina was out in this one, so the Knicks, they got a bunch of guards with Payton, Barrett, Rivers, Quickly, and Nicolina. Kevin Knox in a homecoming type of game in Tampa where he went to high school. A good ball game for Knox, and it's good to see him playing a little bit better. After last season, he took a step back in his sophomore season, but he had 16 points, an assist, and 6 rebounds with 3 threes added in this one. Knox, he's out there on a bunch of fantasy waiver wires, but if he could string together a few more good games, he's a player that I would go out there and add because of his scoring ability and 3-point shooting. So Nerlens Noel, 6.6 rebounds. He's a player I said to drop this game. He got more playing time because of Mitch Robinson in foul trouble. But Noel, he shouldn't be on the waiver wire. And Jared Harper, Theo Pinson, and Bazingis, they're definitely not on the radar. Now we'll go to the Raptors box score. OG Anunoby, he was a highly drafted pick in the 9th to 10th round of fantasy drafts. And another pretty bad game for him. 5 points, 2 assists, 7 rebounds in this one for OG. But don't drop him yet. It was an off game for him, and hopefully he bounces back. Norman Powell, he got another start in this one. 17 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist. So a pretty good game for Powell. We'll see if he'll start again when Siakam, I believe, would come back in the next game for the Raptors. Hopefully he learned his lesson because he's a big part of this team, and he's got to get things going here for this Raptor team. Aaron Baines, he don't really have fantasy value. 3 points, 4 rebounds, and assist here, and only 15 minutes of work. So an off game for Baines. Chris Booker, he's more the fantasy guy here. And we even saw Alex Len have a good game. So Aaron Baines, he might be droppable after this week, but we'll see what he does here on the weekend. Kyle Lowry, another decent game for him. 20 points, 4 assists, 7 rebounds, and more of the scoring load were on him and Fred VanVleet with Pascal Siakam out in this one. And both these guards, they played pretty well in this game. And now on to Fred VanVleet. He got the big contract in the offseason, and he had a good game here. He missed a bunch of threes early, but then he got red hot in the second half of the game. And he finished with 25 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. In this one was Fred VanVleet, so a good ball game for him. Chris Booker now on to 9 points, 9 boards, 2 assists. He's going to get many opportunities. They re-signed him to a decent contract in the offseason, was this Raptor team. So it was good to see him have a good game. And many fantasy owners, they took him in the later rounds of their fantasy drafts, and they're hoping Booker breaks out for the Raptors. Terrence Davis, 10 points, 4 boards. He don't have value. Stanley Johnson, no points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds. He don't really have value. And Alex Len, a decent game, 11 points, 2 rebounds. But the rest of the guys here, this game got out of hand late, so they played a few minutes. But they're not going to have much fantasy value. So the Raptors win and get their first victory of the season, 100-83. Now on to the next game to recap here. Pelicans and the Oklahoma City Thunder here in this one. The Thunder, they got ramped early and often in this one, and the Pelicans blow them out 113-80 in this one with a 33-point victory, and that 28-7 fourth quarter blowout was the difference here. Brandon Ingram, he continues to put up big games and big numbers, and he had a 20-point, 2 assist, 7 rebound game. Ingram was a stud. He's a player I have in 2 of my fantasy leagues, and it's good to own him. He's getting the job done. He's a big scorer, and that's why he was the main piece in that Anthony Davis deal with the LA Lakers. Now Zion Williamson, he didn't play many minutes in this one because of a blowout, and they rested him because his knee's still not 100% in my opinion. But Williamson, 12 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist. So we'll see what Williamson does in his next game for the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Toronto Raptors coming up. But Williamson, I'm not worried about him. They cut his minutes down, and this was a blowout game, so that's why I think he didn't play much. Steven Adams, the center I said to buy low this week, and he had a nice double-double in this one in 31 minutes of play, 14 points, 10 boards, and 2 assists. And Adams, he's a solid center in real life and fantasy. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's a player that he don't really miss many ball games, and it was good to see him have a double-double here. Lonzo Ball, he almost dropped a triple-double in this one. He's a free agent after the season, so I think this season will be Ball's best season of his career, and he had a great game, 16 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds in 32 minutes of play. And Ball, his shooting's improving. He's made some adjustments with his shooting form, and it's good to see him have almost a triple-double in this one. Eric Bledsoe, decent game for him, 17 points, and assists, 3 rebounds for Bledsoe. So we'll see Bledsoe here, 25 minutes of play, we hope to see that get bumped up. But I think they were resting Zion and the veterans as this game got out of hand in the late third quarter. But a decent game for Bledsoe. Josh Hart, a nice double-double in this one. 12 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists. Him and J.J. Redick, the 6 men for this New Orleans Pelicans team. So I like Hart. He's available in a decent amount of fantasy leagues. So for some reason, if he's out there, I would definitely take a flyer on Hart and see what he does in the upcoming games this weekend and this week. Now, luckily, Alexander Walker, he played 19 minutes, 14 points, an assist and 3 rebounds, but he's not on the fantasy radar yet, in my opinion. They got a lot of guards there who are going to play major minutes, but Alexander Walker, he's a pretty good prospect and a talent. Nikola Millie, he's going to play about 15-20 minutes a game for this team, but he has no fantasy value. J.J. Redick, he's on a bunch of fantasy teams, but he didn't do much in last night's game. 3 points, an assist, 2 rebounds, and 17 minutes of work for Redick. So hopefully Redick bounces back. He's still capable of having some big 20-point plus games and hitting a bunch of threes, so I wouldn't drop him just yet. Jackson Hayes, drafted him last season, 14 minutes of work, no points, an assist and 6 rebounds. He don't have fantasy value yet, but he's a player I would keep an eye on if an injury does happen to Zion or Steven Adams. Now to the Thunder side of things. Darius Basil, he's been a player the last few days. His percentage of ownage has gone up after a good few games for him, but in this one, underwhelming performance. 7 points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds in 27 minutes of play. I'm going to keep Basil. This Thunder team, it's all rookies pretty much, and a couple vets like George Hill and Horford. But besides that, this guy I'm going to keep on my fantasy roster, and he's going to play minutes. So you're just going to have to expect some bad games here and there for him. And the same thing for Luguentz Dort. He was a pickup recommended last week and a sleeper by me as well entering your drafts. 8 points, an assist, and 3 rebounds. But let's face it, he didn't play many minutes. Only 17 minutes of play in this one for Dort. So Dort, I think he'll bounce back in the next game. And this game was just a bad game all around, I believe, here for this Thunder team, only scoring 80 points. Al Horford, he had the best game out of all the Thunder players. 17 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists in 24 minutes of play. So Horford, he's a veteran. You know, he knows how to get the job done, and he's a decent fantasy player. A guy you probably drafted in 8th and 9th round, and I'm guessing by the trade deadline here in March, he's going to get traded and land somewhere else, but he's putting up decent numbers, and he's a good ball player. Shea Gill, Alexander, he's the main man over here for the Thunder. And this game, it was a down game, like I said, for everyone. Only 8 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds in 28 minutes of play for Alexander. So Alexander, hopefully he bounces back in the next game. Many people took him 3rd, 4th round in their fantasy drafts. So I think he'll bounce back. This guy's got all the talent in the world, and he's going to have every opportunity here for the Thunder. George Hill, he came back to earth a little in this one. 8 points, 4 assists in 24 minutes of play. And Hill, he's a player. One day he's good, the next he's not. He's hard to own in fantasy, and I actually just dropped him in my league because I can't deal with all these inconsistencies, and there were better options on the wire. And the rest of these guys don't really have value. Maybe Diallo, he played 18 minutes, 3 points, 3 assists, and a rebound. And Isaiah Roby, I've seen him get picked up in a bunch of leagues over the last few days. And in 18 minutes, he had a decent stat line still. 7 points, 6 rebounds. So a decent game for Roby. 18 minutes of play. But everyone else in this Thunder team not going to have fantasy value. So the Pelicans beat them 113-80. And the final game to recap from last night was the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz, with the Suns so far off to a great start this season, improving to 4-1 with a 106-95 victory. And we'll go over the Suns box score here. Mikel Bridges, 16 points, 6 rebounds for the Suns, and he's been playing good. He's a player I said to sell high, and another good game where I would sell him high here is Mikel Bridges. I don't think this will stay up with the high scoring, but Bridges, he helps in a couple categories, and he's a decent player, and obviously he's going to play major minutes for this Sun team, and we saw it last night, so a good game for him. Jay Crowder, anywhere he goes, he contributes to his teams, and he's bounced around the NBA now over the last few seasons as Crowder. And a good game for him here, 16 points, 6 rebounds, and an assist for Jay Crowder. So Crowder, he's a good ball player. He's a fundamental guy, and he does a lot of the little things. But for fantasy basketball, I don't think he'll be great value. But he's a guy to keep an eye on as well after having a solid game like this. DeAndre Ayton, I said to buy him low, and this might be the perfect time after another bad performance from him in this one. 4 points, 3 assists, and 9 rebounds in 8 minutes of play. So Ayton, the stats haven't been up to par so far in the early going for him. He's a player that could put up huge numbers like we saw last season. And right now, I said early in the week to buy him low. And right now, like I said before, this is the best time after another bad stat line from Ayton in this one. Devin Booker, a solid game, one of his best of the season so far. 25 points, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds in this game for Booker. Booker and Paul, I think so far, they're trying to adjust, trying to get things going here for this Sun team, and they just got to play more with each other, and I think things will fall into line. But Booker to get 25 points, that's a good outing here last night. Chris Paul, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, and Paul, once again, he goes to a new team, and good things are happening here. And Chris Paul, he was a player drafted in the 3rd or 4th round of many fantasy drafts, and a good game for him for here. The only thing's injuries. Last season, knock on wood, he didn't get injured, and hopefully this season he don't get injured. Cameron Johnson, pretty good ball game for him. 10 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. He's on the borderline of being on the fantasy radar, but I would hold off and wait to see another game or two out of him before I'm going to go out there and pick him up. Cameron Payne, highly touted prospect out of college, but he's a role player at this point. He don't really have value. Dario Saric, with all the big names here in Phoenix, he just doesn't have value right now. And he had a 5-point, 1 assist, 5 rebound game in 18 minutes of play for this Sun team. And the rest of the guys, Javon Carter, Langston Galloway, and Kaminsky, they're not going to have fantasy value at this time. Now to the Jazz side of things. Royce O'Neill, he's playing major minutes of late, and a decent game for him here. 8 points, an assist, and 9 rebounds in 35 minutes of play. O'Neal, he's probably out there in about 50% of fantasy leagues, but he's getting major minutes, and he's a player to keep an eye on. Bajon Bogdanovic, a bad ball game in this one. 29 minutes of work, 3 points, an assist, and a rebound. So Bajon, hopefully he bounces back. This wasn't a good performance at all for him, so I would like to see him play better and hopefully get better as the games go on. But he's a player, I'm not worried about him. It was one bad game. If he strings a couple bad games along together, then I'll be worried. Rudy Goldberg, another nice double-double. He's solid. He was drafted 2nd, 3rd round of most fantasy drafts here. 18 points, 14 rebounds for Rudy Goldberg, and I'm not worried about him. Donovan Mitchell, he was a guard. I said to buy low. The shooting percentage has been a problem so far for him. And in this game, 23 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. So a decent game for Mitchell. And if the Mitchell owner, he's frustrated or whatever the deal is, I would go out there and try to trade for Mitchell because he's only going to go up from here. And I think it started with a decent game last night. Mike Conley Jr., solid player in real life and fantasy. And he had a good ball game here. 16 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. So Conley, he's not going to be the huge scorer or assist player he was in Memphis, but he's still going to be very valuable and a good player to be your 8th or 9th best player on your fantasy team this season. Joel Ingles, not a good game for him, but he's the 6th man, him and Jordan Clarkson, for this Utah Jazz team. 5 points, 4 assists, and a rebound, and an assist one in 32 minutes of play. So Ingles, he'll help at threes, he'll help in assists, steals he's pretty decent at, and rebounds. And this game, it was just an off game for most of these guys on Utah, so I think he'll be all right. Jordan Clarkson, he's a scoring specialist for this team, and he had 12 points, 2 assists, 5 rebounds, and he also shoved the referee in this one after getting fouled and the ref running into him, and he pushed him off him. Maybe he thought he was a player or something, but whatever. He got a technical, but he didn't get thrown out. And Clarkson, I just picked him up in one league, actually. He's a player. He's going to help in scoring. He's going to hit 3-pointers, decent free throw percentage, and he gets assists as well. Derek Favors, 10 points, 5 boards in 14 minutes, but I don't think he really has fantasy value with Bogdanovic, Ingles, Royce O'Neill, and Goldberg